Okay, so we're going to look at slope a little bit more today. Note, if they give you a decimal for slope, change it to a fraction. An example, negative 1.25 is negative 5/4 because you want to see it as rise over run. And that's why. If you have, so find the slope rate of change in equation. So we want to do this for each line. So if I look at, so here's line 1. Oh gosh, this is going to be kind of hard. So we want to try, first of all, to find your Y-intercept. So there's our Y-intercept, and we've got, can probably say that's a point. We're going to have to do some guesstimating on this. But if anything else, on line 1, I've got my B, and that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. And my M, it looks like rise to run. Rise is 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, 2, 3. So 4 over 3. So then if we put that in one whole equation, y equals 4 over 3x plus 4. So then if we look at line 2, man, these are terrible. So first thing we can look at, because it's the easiest piece, is to look at your y-intercept. So it crosses at about here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, negative 8. And then we can try to make another point. If these aren't totally accurate, it's okay. At least on your test you will have more clear graphs. But 1, 2, 3, 4 over 2. And that would reduce down to be just 2, right? So y equals negative, nope. Y equals 2x minus 8. And you can put plus negative 8. I'm just telling you this is how it'll look on the STAR test. They won't do plus negative. And then the next one, we've got line 3. So same thing, easiest piece. Let's look at our y-intercept. So our B, and that's at 2, we're going to say. 2, and then, oh my gosh, how terrible is this? We can put a point, let's say right there. And that would be up 1 over 1, 2, 3. And one thing we need to look at, since our line, if we look at the left of it, it's going down and to the right. So it's going to be negative. So negative 1 over 3. So in an equation altogether, y equals negative 1/3 x plus 2. So positive and negative, that's one thing you want to look at right off the bat. So that hopefully can eliminate some of your answer choices. And then the last one, line 4, same thing. I already know my M, my slope should be negative. But let's see. Erase this. Okay. So let's see where the B is. Where did it cross the y-intercept? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, possibly. Negative 6. And so my M, already I'm going to go ahead and put a negative in front of it before I even get my points. And I'm going to say that is a point. 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, perhaps. Negative 3 over 3, which would reduce down to just be negative 1. So altogether, y equals negative 1x, or just negative x minus 6. Okay. And like I said, on the test, those will be way easier to see. It won't be that difficult, but at least you get the gist of how we want to find those. The equation for each, remember no slope. No slope is a vertical line. Think of N for no slope. And then 0 slope is your horizontal line. Think of 0 slope. Down here at the bottom, given 2 points, find the slope in the equation, use stat edit, then stat calc 1 reg. So what this means is if you wanted to, you could set these up like a table. So you have x and y, x and y. So in your calculator, if you did do that and you went to stat edit, you'd have negative 2, negative 1, and then 3, negative 1. That's always an option. You can totally do that if you want to get some practice in. It's not a bad idea. But you can also do x1, y1, x2, y2, and do that formula that we use. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, okay? So either way, it'll give you the same answer. Oh, but I guess if we want the equation. Anyway, okay, so negative 1 minus 3 on top of negative 1 minus negative 2. And so that gives us okay, so we get negative 4 over 1, which is reduced down to negative 4. So that's going to be our m, that's our slope, negative 4. And then if we wanted to find our b, we can use, this is getting long, we can use y equals mx plus b, where if I know that my m is negative 4, then I can use any x and y from these 2 points. So like, say I want to use the top ones. So I can plug in negative 2 for x and 3 for y. And that way I can find my b. I can solve this equation. So that should be positive 8 plus b equals 3. So then a one-step equation, b would be negative 5. So altogether, y equals negative 4x minus 5. And since we have a b value here at the end, it's going to be non-proportional. Same thing on the next one. So that one, I've worked it out, and I've plugged in for the equation. You can always do that using y2 minus y1, or I'll try the next one with the calculator. So x1, y1, x2, y2. So if you want to take a second and practice that, so you go to Stat, Edit. I know y'all can't see my calculator, but clear out your list if there's anything in there. So hit clear and enter. And then in list 1, we want to put our x's. So we've got 6 and 14. So 6, enter, 14, enter. And then in list 2 is your y's. So that's 9 and then 21. And then go to Stat, Calc, and arrow down till you hit Lin Reg, the one that looks like slope. Hit enter until you get a new screen that looks like ax plus b. And for a should be 1.5 and b is 0. So altogether y equals 1.5x plus 0 or nothing. So in that case, since there's nothing over here, it's proportional. Interpret the meaning of slope and y-intercept. So example, Christy installs granite countertops. She charges $400 for all jobs and then $80 per linear foot of granite. So what is the y-intercept on the graph? So that's your b. That's your extra or your starting point. There's a lot of different ways to see it. So if she charges $400 for all jobs, no matter what, and then on top of that, she's going to charge $80 per foot of granite. We see that word per, so that tells us that needs to have a variable next to it. So the b, the y-intercept, is that $400. That's always going to be your initial fee or your starting point, something of that nature. Oh, what does it represent? It represents the initial fee, the starting point. If you were to graph that, you would have to start at $400, and then it just goes up from there. And then what's the value of the slope? Well, if we put this into y equals mx plus b, it would look like 80x plus 400. So that 80 is our slope. So $80. And what does it represent? It represents our extra that's added on, our $80 per foot of granite. So that's the extra that's going to be added on each time. Okay. So determine the equation or inequality from a verbal description. Determine slope with variable that changes per or each or every. And the y-intercept is your fixed charge. To get your equation, y equals mx plus b. Like we were saying earlier, it's usually like an initial fee, your starting point, per, sometimes it'll be each, every for slope. So this first one, Katie and her friends decided to go out for pizza. They wanted to create their own large pizza, which costs $10.99 plus $1.50 per topping. So that word per tells us that this is the number that's going to be next to your variable. So 1.50x plus the base price of $10.99. And there you go. So Miss Nielsen needs some electric work done in her house. She only has $300 to spend. An electrician charges a $40 fixed fee. That should go ahead and tell you that that's B. Plus $30 per work for work done. Write an inequality that will determine how many hours she can afford. So an inequality, so it's got to be less than this $300. Or, I guess if you're going to spend money on something, you could spend that exact amount of money. So we really need to look at whatever she spends on this work should be less than or equal to $300. We don't want to spend more than that. So if we've got a $40 fixed fee plus the $30 per hour for work, that should be our inequality. We want this to be less than or equal to the $300 that she has. We've got our fixed fee of 40. They gave us that word per, so we know it's talking about the 30 per hour. Describe independent and dependent events. Write the equation. X is independent, Y is dependent. So always think about is Y depends on something else. Y depends on something else. X is your independent. It can be interchanged with whatever. So this example problem, Nancy sells orange juice and lemonade. She charges different prices for small, medium, and large sizes of these drinks. What are the independent and dependent variables? So F says the independent variable drink size, dependent variable price change. Sounds about right. She charges different prices for these different sizes, so maybe. Independent variable, the type of drink. Dependent variable, the price charged. Does it matter if she gets a Sprite or Dr. Pepper? No. She gets a small or a large, yes. But the type doesn't matter. Independent variable, the price charged. The dependent variable, the drink size. So is the price always going to stay the same and it depends on what price size drink you get? No. It's not up to the cashier. Independent variable, the price charged. Dependent, type of drink. No. What are the independent and dependent variables in the examples below? So anytime you have a table like this, X is on top, Y is on the bottom. So always your X is your independent. So number of hours is our independent. And it looks like the price charged is going to be dependent. Usually money. If there's any money involved, that's always your dependent. The price of something is going to depend on something else. Usually the number of something. Okay, so then we've got our X here, number of months. Y is the cost. So again, just like I was saying, X is your independent, and it's our number of months. Y is the cost. So that's going to be dependent. The moolah. So if we've got our number of months down here, it looks like the cost of cell phone by number of months. So it's going to go up the longer you have it.